Good afternoon. I'm Jessica Robinson, and I'm the Chair of the Stanton Planning Commission, and I hereby call this December 18, 2025 meeting of the Stanton Planning Commission to order. The first item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the November 18, 2025 meeting minutes. I know that we do have one change on line 38 where it reads November, it should read September. Do either of you have any other changes? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I recommend that we approve the minutes of the September meeting with that one change.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the November 18, 2025 meeting minutes as presented, as amended. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ketziker?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The November 18, 2025 meeting minutes are approved as amended. We now turn in our agenda to new business. Several of the items on the agenda tonight are public hearings. On each of those items, after the staff report is given and the commission has the opportunity to ask questions of staff, I will then open the public hearing. We will first give the applicant the opportunity to make comments about their request, and then we'll open up the floor for comments from the public and also from Zoom. All speakers should come to the podium at the front and first provide us with their names and current address. And we ask that the applicant limit comments to 10 minutes and that other speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. Also, please note this is a time for the commission to listen to your remarks, and in an effort to encourage and maintain orderly conduct, we will not engage in, give, or take debate. If you're seeking information, please mention that during your remarks, and a member of community development staff may get in touch with you in the days ahead. All right. Item 3A, public hearing and consideration of a request by Augusta Opportunities, Inc. to rezone 20 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard, parcel identification number 12298, and 30 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard, parcel identification number 12299, from B2 General Business to R4 High Density Residential District. Mr. Hartless, Planning Manager for the city, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request by Augusta Opportunities for rezoning of 20 and 30 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard from B2 General Business to R4 High Density Residential. 20 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard is roughly 1.241 acres in size, and 30 Stonewall Jackson is roughly 1.171 acres. Both lots are currently undeveloped. The property is located at the northwest side of the intersection of Stonewall Jackson Boulevard and Green Hills Drive. Property is adjacent to the Old South and Southview planned residential developments. And the applicant owner is also the developer of that neighborhood. These lots were owned by Valley Alliance, who is the original developer of Old South Village, but were not part of the planned residential development of that area. So it was commercial land owned by the developer, but it was not part of the platted residential lots or the special use permit that was granted. City staff have conducted a review of the rezoning request and have not identified any issues. The topography of the subject lots makes access from Green Hills or Stonewall Jackson very challenging. So access to these lots will likely come via the Old Southview neighborhood from Manassas Lane. Commercial access through a residential neighborhood is not good zoning practice. And staff believes that rezoning these lots to residential is the best development option for this area. If approved, the developer will construct single-family homes in this area. The approved preliminary plat for Old South and Southview allows for up to 286 units to be developed with sole access from Stonewall Jackson Boulevard and Green Hills Drive. Due to issues with topography, the developer has been forced to reduce the number of lots that have been platted in Old South and Southview, and they propose to take the the remaining units, which were unable to be platted, and apply them to this new development area. Overall density for all of Old South and Southview and this new development area cannot exceed that 286 units that were previously approved, with Green Hills Drive and Stonewall Jackson as the sole access point. If the rezoning is approved, an infrastructure construction plan will be required for construction of the public streets, public utilities, stormwater management facilities, and grading of the area. A final plat will then be required for dedication of the infrastructure and to create the actual individual building lots. Surrounding zoning includes R4 high-density residential to the north, which is the Old South and Southview neighborhood, and B2 general business to the south and west. And that is a large tract of land which was part of Ingleside, largely undeveloped area. The city's comprehensive plan designates this area as medium-density planned residential. This category is designated as planned development of multifamily uses, including two-family dwellings, single-family attached dwellings, also known as townhouses, and condominiums. The requested rezoning is consistent with this designation. And I would also point out that all of the Old South and Southview neighborhood has the same designation for medium density planned residential. And staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested rezoning.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? I have a couple. So the R4 high density residential zoning, did that come over from when we annexed that in from the county? Do you know?
I don't know if it came from the county. That area was annexed in 1986, and I do not know what the zoning was at the time of annexation.
Okay.
I do know that it was zoned R4 before they requested the special use permit in 2005.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit more? So we have how many sections platted now? 4?
There have been 4 sections platted and built. Section 5 and 6 is in the process now.
Okay. And there are 8 sections on the,
I believe there will be 8, but possibly 9, but it looks like it's going to be 8 sections total.
and the remaining lots that were in the original plan, are they still owned by the same developer? Or do you know that?
All
So,
of the residue that's yet to be developed, yeah, everything that was in the name of Valley Alliance, the original developer, is now owned by Augusta Opportunities.
okay.
I have a question. You might have mentioned it, but is there what's the intent for any of the residue lots that are undevelopable in the Old Southview?
So what happened is that they relocated the street slightly in some areas, and it has impacted the layout of the lots. So there aren't large areas of undeveloped land that was originally going to be platted. It's just slight changes in the road layout, which has affected or impacted the lot layout.
Gotcha.
And then at this point, if we approve rezoning it to straight R4, that, there's no special use permit, so they're not wouldn't necessarily have to be part of the homeowners association and part of all of the other, that would be its own.
Yeah, it could be its own separate development, or it could be part of the PRD. It doesn't have to have a special use permit to be part of that Old Southview planned development. The special use permit is specifically to approve an alternate form of development for the area. And for this particular area, they could do a special use permit amendment, or they could do a by right development of it. More than likely, if this new development area, if the stormwater management of this new area was incorporated into the stormwater for Old South for stormwater management purposes, they probably would have to be part of that Old South Southview HOA. But
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't seen any development plan yet, so I can't speak specifically to what will happen.
So, and then how do we reconcile the plan unit development with the limit of 286 and all of the lots haven't been developed yet?
Sure.
With, we want to include this area in that 286, but it's not part of the same special use permit plan unit development.
So in 2005, the developer proposed 317 units, housing units. Then in 2013, they amended the master plan for the area and they reduced density to 286 units. After that, the city adopted an appendix to the state fire code, which caps number of units with one access point at 30. So the city can no longer approve neighborhoods with more than 30 units unless there's at least two access points. But Old South was approved in 2006, and the developer has a right to develop 286 units with one access point. So that's how we get to that. This new development will still have access from Stonewall Jackson Boulevard, and 286 units are the maximum number that we can allow with sole access from Stonewall Jackson Boulevard.
Maybe where you were going with that is would a plat amendment for Old South be required to eliminate the lots that we would potentially create here? Or is there enough adjustment that has happened that the current, preliminary plat for Old South only,
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And and how does that, just to piggyback on that before you answer, how does that get grandfathered into the 286 if
Yeah.
it wasn't part of the plan unit
Sure.
development?
So the original preliminary plat is a plan for how the area will be developed. Then the developer comes back with an infrastructure construction plan that shows how the streets will be built, where the sidewalks, where the curb and gutter, where the stormwater management facilities will be located. And that plan is reviewed by staff, and once approved, then the developer submits a final plat. And the final plat is the document that actually creates the lots. The final plat does not have to conform exactly to the preliminary plat, because the preliminary plat is just a plan. It's a preliminary layout. So when staff reviews final plats, we look to see if it's in general conformance. And we have determined so far, when we review final plats, that they've all been in general conformance with the requirements of the preliminary plat. So at this point, because of some slight changes in the road alignment, there are now going to be excess lots that they now wish to apply to this new development area. And because in 2006, City Council approved 286 units with sole access from Stonewall Jackson Boulevard, we determined that the developer has a vested right to build that number of units. So even though they can't get all of them in the original area that was going to be the residential portion of Old South and Southview, they can build them in this particular area because they have excess units and they have a vested right to build 286 dwellings.
And were these business lots in the original master plan as business lots?
They were adjacent to the planned residential development. They were mentioned in the briefing because the developer also owned them, but they were not platted with residential lots, and they were not part of the special use permit for the residential development.
I do have a question.
Okay.
I also noted after we went and looked at the site and we looked at it on the maps and things, that we have just over 2.4 acres in here. And so with the maximum density per acre, we're not looking for much more than 10 or 12 units. Is that, and that would be very optimistic considering they're going to need to put a
Yeah, I
road
think
in
so.
there and so
Um,
on. Unless they get access off of Stonewall Jackson Boulevard directly, which strikes me as awkward.
I think that would be very difficult to do. I can't say for sure because I haven't seen the plat yet for the final section, but I think we're looking at 20 or less new units. I think Ray Burkholder is here tonight to represent the applicant. He might be able to speak to that a little more clearly. He may have a better idea since they're the ones that are designing the final sections.
And you're basing that on density?
I'm basing that on what they've platted so far and what they've done in 5 and 6 and what's left.
But say they abandoned the rest of it. I know they're not going to, but in that, this 2.4 acres
Mhm.
in straight R4, how many, what would could
That's
density be? I think that's what
What I
you were
meant, that's
getting
what I'm
at.
trying to ask.
Yeah. So far through section 4, they've platted a little over 100 lots. Section 5 and 6, I believe, was another 66 lots. So we're sitting right now at about 170. If they abandon section 7 and 8, then they could build quite a few units on Manassas Lane. I think the constraints of the size of the lots are gonna be very restrictive in terms of number of units.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. With that, I will now open the public hearing. Again, I ask that all speakers please come to the podium and begin by stating your name. We will begin with the applicant's representative, Ray Burkholder from Balzer and Associates.
A Westwood company.
I know, I was, sorry.
Might be the last time I say that. So Ray Burkholder, Balzer Associates, Westwood Company. Address is 1760 Churchville Avenue. And appreciate the introduction there, Tim. That was pretty thorough. I'm going to try to address just a couple little nuances that came up in some of the questions and maybe a little history there too. So I was able to kind of go back and look at the original plan that was done by Patton Harrison Rust. So these business lots did not drain into the existing stormwater basin, weren't accounted for at all. So we're going to have to do a whole new stormwater plan. It'll have to be under its own purview. It actually drains down and bypasses the stormwater pond that's there today. So whatever we do HOA wise, that'll have to be figured out later. It's almost, it'll have to have its own actual HOA almost as a party. And if they wanted to kind of pull them together, they could from an amenity perspective or something, I guess. But that's yet to be determined.
But from a stormwater perspective, it's going to have its
say
own.
separate.
Okay.
Yep. So when we look at the topography, kind of back to the what does this look like when we go to do a design plan? So we've not even started that process yet. Getting through this hurdle first, it is only 2 acres or just over 2 acres. A lot of topography there, so we wouldn't be able to meet any kind of fire access up off of Stonewall Jackson. So coming in from the top makes sense. We're going to probably lose 50% of the land due to topography and stormwater. So I think that the numbers y'all were throwing around are in line with what we're looking at, depending even if it went single family or a little more dense with townhouse or something like that. But again, we haven't come up with any plans at this point. It does kind of narrow in too, so it's kind of a narrow, thin lot. So you're probably not looking. That also impacts the density. So I can't speak to the existing zoning piece. I think, Tim, you did a good job kind of explaining the difference in the preliminary plat versus what's platted today. I will say as sections have been platted, that's when they've been brought into the HOA. So, it's kind of implied anything obviously that went into the existing stormwater. I agree it should be a part of that. Again, this could be separate. As far as the traffic, again, I think the way the city has approached this is pretty conservative because in addition, what hasn't been accounted for is the business traffic, right? We're not trying to say, hell, there's also business traffic. We're just kind of looking at this holistically just as residential, right? So there's clearly going to be business traffic coming out of here too, but we're just kind of discounting that off. So I feel like again, it's a pretty conservative approach the city has taken in how they're viewing that, and I would agree. From a land use perspective, I mean, this just makes a lot of sense. We're just trying to. This has always been, even with the prior owners, a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out what to do with these business lots, how to not impact the community next door. So I think this is just a logical step to try to put something in here that is compatible with the neighborhood from a traffic standpoint and use perspective. It will sort of set up above, the roads and businesses that are there today. So kind of has that natural buffer from those businesses also. I think that addresses the questions y'all had. Is there any other questions y'all have for me?
Would, with access anticipated come off of Manassas Way, would that just terminate in another cul-de-sac or connect down to Green Hills or?
It can't because it won't meet the fire access. They've gotten really strict about the road access and the number of lots. And so the only other scenario, Scott, would be it could be left and then actually swing back up into the Ingleside property at some point in time, again, at that higher elevation. But that's kind of yet to be determined if that would, and that would ultimately then likely loop back down to Green Hill, right? That'd be what you try to do, is have that connectivity.
Mhm.
But I would say it would just terminate probably is the.
No, not from me.
Thank you. All
Thank you.
right, is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to speak? Please.
Hello, how y'all doing this evening?
Good.
All right, my name is Dennis Moody. I live at 501 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard. I'm currently the HOA president of Old South Village in Southview. I'm coming to y'all to please consider leaving the land like it is. Number one, the amount of traffic we have there right now is just fine for the fit our community. We already had police come out several times, even the city, to see can we get a traffic light. That has been denied. We asked for speed bumps. That has been denied. The amount of traffic that we have, the potential to come there, is going to be ridiculous. And you already said it with the fire trucks. Last January, when my first winter in the house, we had a potential house fire on Rolling Ridge. It was not a fire, but the amount of fire trucks who struggled to get up there at that time was ridiculous. The fire chief came out there and said, I don't even know how this got passed by the city. Quote from the fire chief himself. So for the amount of traffic we're going to have there, it's not going to be reasonable. Number two is the property value. Once you bring in, and this is a fact, once you bring in any type of townhomes, apartments, or condos, for our property value, it drops in Old South Village. So for the home values, it looks good for the people who bought their homes many years ago, right? It does. They bought their homes $225,000. Now they selling it for $400,000. For the people who just moved in, we spent $480,000 to $525,000 for our homes. Our property value is not going to change for quite some time, but it will drop, and this is a fact from other developments. Number three, when we have issues in our community, I've been trying to work with Augusta Opportunities, and I find them sometimes to be very difficult to work with, trying to get things done. Our neighbors have complained to me. I have numerous emails trying to work with Augusta Opportunities on certain things, and they say, you know what? If you got a problem, go talk to you, because y'all planned it. You approved it. Then they go turn around, you got a problem, go talk to Rodney Rhodes. Go talk to the mayor. They approved it. So before y'all think about approving something, any issue that comes up that falls back on the HOA, we have to play ring around the rosy. We have to talk to D.R. Horton, the developer, and we got to talk to Augusta Opportunities. Then we got to talk to the city to get simple things done. And you said something earlier, Tim. You said the things are on the plaque. The plaques that y'all did for us for sections 5 and 6, section 5, I live in 4, 5, sorry. 5, you approve something, then once it gets here, on the plaque, it says we're supposed to have street lights. That's in the plaque. It was filed, but guess what? We don't have them. We're supposed to have trees in the new homes. We don't have them. We doing what says is in the plaque that you approve, but when it comes down to doing it, we can't get it. Is that fair? If you put something in writing from all of us, that should be completely solid. We should have had to play that, oh, well, the city approved it, talking about you. Then once it's approved, then you know what? We had to go talk to the management upstairs. Is that fair?
Mr. Moody, your time is up.
Okay, I just want to go on record for that. But we do have a lot of frustration from our community.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Sorry. You're next. I'll-
Yeah. Because yes, let me know if you can hear me. I'm Alicia Moody. I'm the vice president of the Old South Village HOA. I live with him in 501 Stonewall Jackson. And I am aligned with him that the grading of the ground is so poor that we have residents that have to pay out of pocket from previous phases, like 2 and 3. I'm in 4. There is a home about to be plotted next to my home that will have water runoff that's already flooded my backyard. Both Augusta Opportunities and D.R. Horton are aware, and they're still building that home right beside my house as we speak. I am very worried for approving anything that the HOA does not see. All of our money comes from our residents. We've already had to raise our own fees to handle the legal fees we have to go through to get things that are already promised done. So I plead that before you approve any permits, that you understand the plots that are there and are willing to reinforce them, because we've been told nothing will be reinforced that the city's already approved, even though we don't have them. So it's very disappointing to move here from Portland, from a new build, and to come here and see someone about to set up a very bad situation for my home. We have cliffs in our neighborhood. We have digging. Our roads are constantly dug up. I have 3 daughters, and it is so dark at night in my neighborhood, and I just can't believe I don't have streetlights and I can't get them, and I've been told we have to pay for them as homeowners, which is ridiculous. So I just say, before you approve anything, please have all the information, because there are lives and people who are spending good money and who will be stuck with going into a one-way neighborhood with all of that construction happening there. I don't even know how we're going to get in and out, because we can't get in and out now. So highly concerned that there's conversation around a brand new HOA when we can't even get the drain water issues that we have now done and that come from our own community that we can't fund because it was built so poorly by Augusta Opportunities. So that's all I wanted to make sure, is just really plead that you actually know there's families and lives and money, our personal money we have to put out here just to live well. And we are being told people are being sold homes off of views, and I'm not sure what's being built there if that will also block the views of the families there. So I'm just pleading that before you approve something, that you know what you're approving and that you're willing to hold the organization to it. Thank you.
My name is Darlene Schneck. I live at 401 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard in Stanton. We just bought our house in May of this year. Very proud to live there. It's a great neighborhood. The first gentleman who spoke talked about townhomes, and I am very concerned about high density housing being built on that beautiful spot. To me, it does not represent the character of that neighborhood, which is single family homes, a lot of families and kids. But to have a multi-level structure with that kind of dense housing, to me, feels out of character for our neighborhood. And it affects the value of our house, which we just bought and, paid a decent price for. So that's my first concern. The second concern has to do with HOA requirements. We have very stringent requirements about what we can do and can't do with our house, and we comply with all of those. What is going to happen with this section, and how is that going to be treated? Is it going to be incorporated into the existing HOAs so that, again, you have a unified neighborhood? So those are my two concerns. I really hope that before anything is approved, that you get things in writing. If the developer says it's going to be single-family homes, let it be single-family homes. Thank you.
Or anyone else?
Yes, my name is Steve Estrada, and I live at 102 Rolling Ridge Court. And my concern is, if it was addressed, was not aware of it. What will the city do for water pressure? Because as it is now, it's very low. You can't have enough pressure to water your grass. And the grass is dying on a lot of the homes. Has that been addressed or even suggested?
So I'm keeping track of all the questions and from everyone, and we'll sort of address those at the end.
Yeah, so my concern is that, and also with all the new homes, the power grid. How is the power grid going to affect the rest of the existing homes? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, there we go.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Philip Brown, live at 5061 Lee Jackson Highway. I am 1/3 owner of Augusta Opportunities with Rick Landis and Eric Obal. Just want to address a couple of the statements that was made, and then I just got a couple questions that maybe for clarification. Number one, as far as the trees, I've been in communication with Lyndon Esselrod, Rodney Rhodes, and also Matt Sensenball. And once I noticed this tree structure that we told them that we were put in as we planned, and also when I had Bill Moore, who works for Westwood Balzer Associates, the trees that were designed to be put in after consulting with Matt and a little bit of knowledge that I do have about landscaping, some of the trees that was suggested is not good for infrastructure and for sidewalks pertaining maple trees such as red maples, sunset maples, things of that nature. And so Matt and myself have been working to try to find an alternate that Lyndon Esselrod and I believe Rodney has been copied on also to try to get a little bit better tree for the community so you don't have that surface root, the infrastructure tied into the water lines, sewer lines, et cetera. As far as the grading issues, I met Adam Campbell out there, I guess, probably maybe 5 or 6 months ago. A lot of the stormwater issues was coming from phase 3 and not phase 4. When we developed the land, on the plans, and it is correct that the city was approved the plans. And by that time, we, Augusta Opportunities, had already purchased the plans and the property with the approval when we started development. Then obviously we sold it to D.R. Horton. And then the way they set the houses is out of our control. Whether they set the houses too high, they set them too low, that's something that, is out of my control. And after meeting with the previous ENS supervisor, Pete Kessiger, we come to the agreement that going forward, that we would start an intermediate grading plan, which I believe that you can see that has changed sections 5, section 6, but also another community, Bell Creek, for the remaining 74 lots. That's going to alleviate those stormwater issues. So I understand the homeowners' concerns about the water issues, as Adam and myself, and I apologize, I can't remember who else met us out there. But, going forward in phases 5, 6, 7, and 8, we do have that in place. That's the statements that I want to have as far as some of the things that have been brought up. But I just need some clarification. So in business B1, Tim, is it also true or correct that in business B1, you can have a commercial business on the first floor in the city of Staunton, but also have apartments or residential on the second floor?
And I'll take note of that and we'll
Okay,
address
that's
all
fine.
the
Okay, I
questions
just
at
want to
the
make
end,
that
so.
because I think what Augusta Opportunities is presenting is a much better plan for the use of that area. Because within the guidelines, and you can build up. And what we are proposing is more of a story or a story and a half. And one of the things that when I met with Rodney and Tim and the city staff, and is that I was also concerned about some of those homeowners that live there, because I still have a cousin that lives on the corner of Beauregard, that it didn't impede his view. So with B1, I can go as high as city requirements allow. That could affect that. So going into consideration, we looked at, as we tried to do this and as we started planning, because we've been talking about this for about 3 years on the best use. And so we weighed all those options, and I can say emphatically that we as Augusta Opportunities consider the homeowners and how it would affect their view. Because you're right, there are gorgeous views up there. So that's some of the things that I'd like to have addressed going forward as far as the use of business 1 or B1 of what could be done. And I'm sure that, if you do a business, you don't want a vape shop or a pawn shop in your community. So think about as we go forward, what we're asking, but what is allowed. And that way you can really see how it could affect your subdivision. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name's Gary Williams. I'm located at 200 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard. That's the corner lot of Stonewall and Beauregard. During the construction of, I believe it was Section 2 on Beauregard, there was quite a bit of blasting required and drilling to remove the rock. Just driving up Stonewall, you can see rock outcroppings. So I think it's a safe bet that there's going to be an encounter of underground rock. And my concern, and I wish I would appreciate if you take it into consideration, the structural integrity of our homes. The Manassas Avenue would interface of Beauregard just opposite of my property. So if there is blasting, if there is drilling of rock, I just want some kind of assurance it's not going to affect the structural integrity of our home. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Bailey. I live at 114 Beauregard Drive, which actually would be one of the houses that's most impacted by view or lack thereof. First of all, thank you for the introduction, Tim, and Ray, thank you for the clarification. I'd like to simply emphasize that I don't have a particular preference whether the lots stay business or they become R4. I understand that business can go higher, and R4 has a limit on that potentially, but and I think my biggest concern has to do probably with the ingress and egress, and particularly what was stated about fire mitigation with that ingress and egress. And obviously we have a situation where we have what is, but I would really like to continue to encourage the city in the existing portions of the neighborhood to aggressively address that, because we have a situation now where 30 homes compared to 286 is a big difference when it comes to ingress and egress for fire trucks. I'm concerned how that might impact our homeowners insurance premiums, or even the ability to get coverage should there be a major event in the neighborhood. So I'd really like to see that addressed. I'd like to see traffic management be addressed, traffic calming measures be addressed. We see a lot of fast traffic coming down Stonewall Jackson. There's a lot of complaints. So those are my main concerns. I'd really love to see the city really think hard about how they might be able to address particularly the concern about not having more than 30 homes in a neighborhood because of fire issues. I know that in terms of a single egress, ingress and egress. And then finally, as has been echoed in some of the other comments, I'd like to also request that the city improve or continue to improve oversight and enforcement and encourage better communication between the HOA, the developer, and the city. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom that has their hand raised? All right. See no one on Zoom or in the audience, I will close the public hearing. And the matter rests with the commission. Before you all ask any questions, I sort of want to run through some of the things that were raised with staff. So I'm going to start at the end because this is on my list, and I know I sort of talked with you about it before. And I understand that they owned all the properties, but if it wasn't part of the master plan, I just don't, and these are sort of separate lots that to be developed, and it doesn't have that, we're over the 30 now, how we loop that into the 286 when the 286 was for this much land, in the plan. I understand we approved that, but that wasn't included in what is approved. So I don't understand why they don't have to comply with the current 30 lot rule.
So the original approval predates the fire code appendix that limits it to.
And I totally get it for
Right.
the residential part.
Right. So the developer has a right to build 286 houses because of that council approval. And that council approval allowed for 286 units to be built with Stonewall Jackson as the sole access. That's how we got to the decision that they could use the remainder of those units and add them to this other part of the or it's not the development, but this other development area.
If a separate entity owned these two parcels and wanted to build general business or wanted to rezone them, they would still have to have sole access off Stonewall Jackson Boulevard and would further increase the burden of ingress egress without even being associated in any way with Southview at all. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. The zoning is B2. B2 is our least restrictive zoning district. And it allows anything that you see on Richmond Road, Greenville Avenue, Commerce Road. There could be restaurants, bars, shopping mall. It's wide open. It's general business. So it's just about any commercial use you can think of that is permitted in a B2 district.
So in the briefing, you state, that it's not good planning practice to access commercial businesses through a residential neighborhood. What alternative would there be for these two parcels other than access through it?
It would be very difficult to grade an access point from Stonewall Jackson or Green Hills. I don't know, in 2006, I don't know how much thought they gave to where the access would come from. I don't know if there was an assumption that it would be from Green Hills. Maybe there was an assumption that it would be from a future extension of Green Hills, but that hasn't happened. And if these properties develop, it's likely the only feasible access point is going to be that Manassas Lane connection.
Before I move on to the next.
Go ahead.
Any more? Any more about that particular?
No,
Okay. So the streetlights and the trees were mentioned. Can you illuminate a little bit more on that situation?
So the street trees are required as part of the construction plan review for any new development. We have held off of the enforcement of that for Section 4 because we were afraid the trees would be damaged during construction of the houses. Now that construction of Section 4 has wound down and is pretty much finished, it is time to plant those trees for Section 4. And the developer has been talking with city staff and with the city horticulturalist to figure out exactly how that's going to happen and what type of trees are going to be planted. Today, the city horticulturalist sent a plant list of suggested tree types. So we are working towards getting that landscape installed and planted in Section 4.
Can I ask if there's a timeline or a possible, when is this going to be? Please.
Sure. So right now, it's not a very good time to plant.
Yes, well, that's true.
So we are expecting this to be done in the spring.
Okay.
And that's what the zoning administrator will, that is her goal, and that's what she'll enforce.
And what about the streetlights?
Streetlights are not required by the city code. The developer, there was a note on the master plan that said streetlights to be approved, or something similar to streetlights to be approved by the city and installed by the developer. But our city code does not require streetlights in residential neighborhoods. We don't require them anywhere. So we have no mechanism to require the streetlights.
But if they wanted to put them in, then you could.
If they
the
wanted to put
lumens
it,
and
yes.
all of that could
We
be.
would review the light fixture types to make sure that they are the appropriate cutoff style fixtures. We'd look at the lumens. We'd look at the color temperature of the light to make sure that it was around 3000 K, not more than that. But we cannot require lights to be installed. We can only regulate lights if the developer chooses to install them.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So just for everybody's benefit, with the R4 zoning, that's our most permissive residential zoning. So that would allow apartments, condos, duplexes, townhomes, and single-family residential. Just for everyone's knowledge, hesitating. No. Have I misspoken? Okay.
No, you're right on the money. R4 is the highest density, and it has the widest array of permitted residential uses. So it's single family attached, which are townhouses, two-family dwellings, and also multifamily apartments.
I think I'll just add that's my biggest concern with this application as it's put forth now is just there's not any assurances that the fact that it's tying into an existing subdivision street of Old
Agreed.
South, there
Yes.
should be a little more insurances in place to make sure the character of these units fit with the overall character of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am also concerned about the comments. It's maybe coming to
Yep.
this, but I'm concerned about the comments about the difficulty that the homeowners association has with developer. And I would like to see a more cooperative effort here and where they're heard. And so when they come in here with all of these concerns and we hear them, planning commission has no authority to go out and add streetlights or fix traffic problems. And I find this very frustrating when apparently they've tried to talk to the developer and I'm just concerned. We're hearing now that the street trees, maybe they may start putting them in the ground in the spring. But we've had too many instances where people, since I've been on this commission, where people have come in and promised things and it doesn't come out quite the way everybody thinks it's going to. So I'm leery of what we're hearing because they're coming out with this proposal to put a type of development which may not, as Adam says, match the rest of the neighborhood on this parcel. We've got the traffic problems and they're coming in way before they would really have to. They don't even know how many units they're ultimately going to have left over, which they might try to transfer to this. And so I asked the question about the acreage and how many things you could put on it. And I really don't want to find that, 5 years from now or whenever they're suddenly putting up as many units as the density will permit on 2.4 something acres so that they can get as many of the remaining 286 in there. I'm not comfortable with trying to approve this at the stage that they're at and with all of the issues that have been raised. I'm not opposed to putting residential on that parcel because I think it actually would be better, but I'm concerned about when it happens and how it happens and who's going to be responsible for it happening the way that we think it's going to happen when we approve this. So that's where I am.
And I'm in the same place that I think that a more intensive use, multifamily, that is just not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood or the location or size of the lot. So moving on from that, so the water pressure, power grid, blasting question, sort of taking them all together. I assume that will be addressed when part of the development phase.
Yeah, we'll look at that during the construction plan phase of the staff review to ensure that there's adequate water pressure. The building code does have a minimum pressure that every house has to have. And so we'll make sure that minimum pressure, at least that minimum pressure is achieved. As far as blasting goes, that's regulated by the fire department. There's a blasting permit application process, and the fire marshal's office will watch that blasting to ensure that they meet all of the state's requirements for blasting. The power grid, that's Dominion Energy that supplies power in that area. I believe Dominion will do whatever they have to do to provide electricity for these new homes.
Before we walk into this, considering that we all have to deal with Dominion Energy at times, how can we find out if they know this is going to happen and they're prepared to deal with it?
I can talk to the city engineer to see if he has a contact at Dominion. I find it very difficult to contact anyone at Dominion.
Yeah.
Other than when we do an inspection for a service, it's very easy to get the person who takes care of the electric meters. But other than that, it's very difficult to deal with Dominion. But they do have a franchise agreement with the city, and they are responsible for providing electricity whenever we approve a new dwelling.
I'm also concerned about the points where we're not certain at this time whether they can, whether, dealing with the water pressure and some of these other things. What happens to a development like this and our approval at this time if they get down the line and things aren't working out the way it's a very hypothetical question, but I'm concerned that I don't want to be sitting here doing something now where I wonder if the people who were the planning commission and who approved the original development back in 2006, 5, whichever it was, and they approved the 286 units with one access point because they thought that was appropriate. That's the way things went at the time. And I'm concerned about making changes now that in another 5 years or 10 years, we may have a problem because of something, either the statutes change or something about the site and the development changes.
Well, in terms of the water pressure, if the city engineer reviews the construction plan and has doubts about whether there's sufficient pressure, sufficient supply, we can require offsite improvements to the public water system to ensure that there is enough water supply and water pressure. That's something that he will look at during that infrastructure construction plan review phase.
And that comes before they actually start putting houses in the ground here.
That is required before we approve any final plats and create any building lots. We have to see that construction plan to ensure that the streets and all of the infrastructure will be built to the city and state standards and that there is adequate water and sewer service for what's being proposed.
And will it, with the water pressure especially, will it take into consideration, okay, based on wherever the water is coming from, sure, it might be good for this new development, but how that might affect existing homes that now the water is going to go first here instead of, and I'm saying that in a very rudimentary way because that is not my area of expertise, but does that, in approving the development, does it take into consideration how it's going to affect the surrounding?
He'll look at the number of customers on that leg of the water system. He'll look at the elevation of this new development. He'll do his engineering calculations, which I cannot do, but he will do them and he'll figure out whether there's adequate supply and adequate pressure for what's proposed. When they approved Old South in 2006, they required a new water line along Commerce Road, which increased supply in the area. But he'll look again to ensure that there's enough. And if there's not, then he'll require some additional improvements to make sure that there is.
All right, the last thing I have on my list from the comments was actually brought up by the developer, that the rights of business versus residential in the current zone.
So the current zoning allows for residential on the second floor and up. And in B2, you can build very tall buildings. I don't have the code in front of me, but I believe it's 6 stories. So that would allow for 5 floors of apartments if the developer chose to do that. The bottom floor would have to be reserved for business use, but the second floor and up could all be residential with no limits to density. It could be as many units as he wanted to build in those buildings.
If he could get access to.
If he could get access approved on Manassas Lane.
But however many units he would have to put in there would have to be within the 286.
Yes, you're right. We would still look at that 286 cap because that's the maximum that we could allow with a single access point from Stonewall Jackson. So it would still fall under that 286 cap, but there's no limit to the number of units in the building, as long as the city engineer and our transportation planner are satisfied that the streets can handle. And with residential development, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to require off-site improvements for transportation purposes. We can for water and sewer, but it is very difficult to require it for transportation purposes.
I'm still remembering that you said there were approximately 170 unbuilt units out of that 286 now, and that's kind of what, if I added that up right. Anyway, well,
I've exhausted my list. Thank you for your patience. Any other comments or questions for staff before we discuss amongst ourselves?
thank you.
I come back to the possibility of multifamily and not keeping with the character of the adjoining neighborhood. I mean, I think the other things will work, like the water pressure and the power grid, and like that's gonna work itself out in the construction plan, but that's my major concern.
Yeah. And my other concern is the lack, in addition to that one, which I agree with, and my concern is the lack of responsiveness by the developer to the HOA and the other neighborhood people who may contact them and the concerns that people have. I know that sometimes things happen, and I when I hear the explanation for why the street trees aren't there, I agree with that. You don't want to have them all killed because they're damaged by traffic building more houses. Sometimes I think they should start with the houses in the back and build forward so that people who are already there don't have traffic through. But that means you have to put in all the roads and the sewer to start with, so that's obviously not going to be feasible either. But we still, and the problems with the grading, the only way that we really have to be heard as far as this commission and the developer is to not agree to this at this time until we get some more assurance from the developer that they are going to take care of these issues. And so that's kind of where I am, in addition to not the character of the neighborhood. I'm also concerned that whatever happened, if they went and developed under the current B2 zoning, that we could get something that's even less like the neighborhood, because they could have a business on the first floor. And I mean, I don't know what kind of business they'd put in, and then they could have multi-floors of residential above it, which would be.
What would the parking requirements be in a business? If it were developed business?
It varies depending on the business use. For offices, it's one for every 300 square feet, plus one for every 3 employees. For a restaurant, it's one for every 3 seats. For retail, it's one space for every 100 square feet of retail sales floor.
And then if there were residential on upper floors, there would be
Yeah,
additional.
for residential, then it is based on the number of bedrooms. So 1 bedroom is 1 space, 2 bedroom is 1.5 spaces per unit. 3 bedroom units require 2 spaces per unit.
Yeah, okay. And I did leave off the intermediate grading plan that was mentioned. And is that something that's required that the developer was talking about, or just something that they're doing?
They are doing that in cooperation with the city to help try and address some of the grading discrepancies between lots. We had issues where builders were coming in and they were grading a lot for their specific lot without much regard to the houses on either side. And stormwater was getting funneled into the yards of those houses. So now we've tried to take a more comprehensive approach to the grading, and the developer has been working with us to do that during the construction plan review stage.
One more clarification, I guess, because Old South is itself zoned R4 with a PRD. And part of the PRD process, you go through the master planning and basically have a general layout that you kind of move through section by section. So, and the reason I ask that is because they couldn't, in section 6 or section 7 or whatever, they couldn't suddenly say we're going to build 30 townhomes in this section without amending the PRD. Is that correct?
No, they could withdraw from the special use permit and revert back to the underlying zoning and build anything that is permitted by right in the R4
In
district.
R4.
Mhm.
Yeah, but then the new access
Access,
regulations kick
yeah.
in.
They do. They do.
That 286 units is governed by all the traffic that comes from that development into Stonewall Jackson and
But
Greenhouse.
related to the special use permit.
Right.
Anything outside of that.
Yeah.
But that's how that because that PRD is a special use permit, the developer has the option to do that alternate method of construction. But they're not locked into that because it is a special use permit. They can always revert back to the underlying zoning. For the residual property. Yeah, there's been some discussion about if the developer would be willing to do something to address your concerns. So perhaps you might want to let Mr. Burkholder speak to that.
So it's all good conversation. Tim, again, you did a good job kind of addressing a lot of the concerns. We have upgraded the water line, significant improvements there. So volumes there. We did a full model for the state, the whole development. That all went through approval because
For the water?
For the water, because a lapse had happened with the city process with the state. I can tell you just in prior conversations with Dominion, there's 7 megawatts of available power coming out of the substation there in Stanton. So, and again, it was planned for business before, so it's going to use, these houses are going to use a lot less power than the businesses. I think kind of back to the bigger question here, cohesiveness, kind of a commitment on what's happening. What I'd like to request is for you all to table this, give us some time to kind of address those, maybe with some proffers or figure out how we're going to address that. I don't think we really want to go through the whole PUD process again just for 2 acres, but maybe we can address that through some proffers that help address that. And that way then, to your point, that runs with the land, so you're not really worried about what happens down the road. Regulations continually change all the time. So, the city used to allow 16% road grades now, and then it went to 12%. So that's what Old South is built under. Fire department reviews those plans. They're a part of all those plans. So they don't drive up into a subdivision and should be surprised by what they see. They're a part of that process from the preliminary meetings all the way through plating. So we design our cul-de-sacs with them, looking at those. So, again, we'll continue to work with the fire department through those pieces. But like I said, I think have got some takeaways here. Kind of address y'all's concerns and see if we can't kind of work with the HOA and see if we can't come back in, say, 30 days and have something there that addresses it. So
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
think we would feel much more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Well, he's the representing the developer. That's how this goes. We don't do discussion here. This was to him to answer the questions to address our concerns with the
But yeah,
application.
well, there was a question that he said, I just want to reaffirm that he was right. When the fire marshals did come out that night,
Sir, I'm sorry, we can't have you speak just from the audience, but this is gonna come back, if it is tabled, so it's not gonna advance, if it's tabled, to either way, negative or positive to council. It will come back before us at a future meeting.
And if I could say, if this does become, a conditional zoning that the applicant proffers to try to meet planning commission's concerns, then we will have to re-advertise this. We'll send out new adjacent property letters, so you'll be notified of the next meeting.
And there'll be a whole new public hearing.
Yes.
That's what I was
Yes.
going to point out.
So are we ready for some kind of a motion to that?
Please.
So do we want to do this? I would rather leave it open and not just put in 30 days because it may take longer than that, especially
Yeah,
considering
just
we've got
table it.
holidays between now and January.
To a future.
Yeah, okay. So Madam Chair, on the basis that this rezoning would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that the Planning Commission table this motion on the rezoning of 20 and 30 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard. Until, or how should?
I guess I would maybe, it was a point of discussion, say maybe you just want to move that it be tabled to a future and
Meeting.
not.
And skip the rest,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
I move that we table this rezoning until a future meeting when we have more answers and more information.
I second that.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Wiegand,
Aye.
Mr. Kesecker,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
motion carries.
It has been approved that we will table this matter to a future meeting of the Planning Commission. And thank you to all of you. We really appreciate all of your comments and points that were made that were thoughtful, and they really help us in what we do. The next item on our agenda is item 3B, a public hearing and consideration of a request by River Rock Properties LLC to vacate, discontinue, and abandon that portion of a 12-foot alley lying between lots 9 through 12 of Block D and lots 10 through 13 of Block B of the Rosecrest plat. Excuse me. Mr. Hartless, would you please present the staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom Wilkinson, River Rock Properties LLC, has requested to vacate approximately 200 linear feet of a 12-foot wide alley. The alley runs from Steffi Street north, and it terminates at the property line at 208 Straight Street. The alley was created as part of the Rosecrest plat, which was recorded in Augusta County, and then the area was annexed into the city in 1948. At the northern end of the alley is the Evergreen Townhouse Apartment Complex, 208 Straight Street. It does not appear anyone from the apartment complex uses this alley. All other properties that adjoin the subject portion of the alley are owned by the applicant. Staff has reviewed this request. We did not identify any issues. I will note that a portion of the alley between 1703 and 1705 Steffi Street will remain open. Vacation of this portion of the alley has no impact on the usability of any other alleys or undeveloped streets in the area. And staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested vacation.
Thank you. Any questions of staff before I open the public hearing? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing. And I understand that James Thompson, also with Balzer and Associates, is here to speak for the applicant. Sorry, I left that hanging.
Evening,
Welcome.
Tom Wilkinson, 120 Samuel Bears Road, Weir's Cave. Here to answer any questions on the vacation of the alley.
Sorry, Mr. Wilkinson. Mr. Hartless led me astray. I thought Mr. Thompson was going to
Well,
be
we're
speaking
both here,
tonight. So,
just in case
so
I-
yeah, no, that's fine. I didn't want to leave you out. So,
No problem.
any questions?
No. It was quite clear when we went out and looked at it where
We appreciate it.
Tim's description fit it very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this item? Anyone on Zoom with their hand raised?
No, ma'am.
All right, with that, I will close the public hearing and the matter rests with the commission.
to these things here.
You got it? I have it here. If you don't.
I got it. Okay, are we ready for? On the basis that the request would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested vacation.
Second the motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested alley vacation. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ketziker.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The alley vacation has been recommended for approval, and it is my understanding that it will appear on the city council meeting on January 8th, 2025 at 7 o'clock.
That's correct. 7 p.m.
2026.
The same room at 7 p.m.
Yes. I have lots of tricks, but I cannot go back in time. So thank you all. All right. Next is item 3C, consideration of a request by RCP2 LLC for a special use permit at 126 Guy Street under the provisions of Staunton City Code 18.30.030 parenthetical 6 to allow a planned residential development of 4 single-family dwellings. Mr. Hartless?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request from RCP2 LLC for a special use permit, 126 Guy Street, to construct single-family attached townhomes. The property is located on Guy Street near the intersection with Ranson Street and Straight Street. The applicant acquired the property in July of 2024 and is now requesting this special use permit for a planned residential development for single-family attached with a common parking area. That common parking area arrangement is only permitted through a PRD process. The property is zoned R3 medium density residential, and PRDs are only permitted through the special use permit process. The city's comprehensive plan designates this area as high density residential. The designation is characterized by multi-story, multifamily dwellings with more than 20 units per acre. The proposed development contains 4 units on approximately 0.34 acres, and the requested special use permit is consistent with that comp plan designation. Planning Commission reviewed this request at its November 20th, 2025 meeting where you held a public hearing. Planning Commission, after closing the public hearing, did raise a few concerns, which our applicant, Mr. Justin Shemp, has revised the plan and has resubmitted. He has addressed these concerns. The first concern was about the common parking area. It must be located on land owned by the HOA. Shared parking via easements is not permitted. So the plan has been revised to show that the parking lot is now on a lot that will be owned by the HOA. Minimum setbacks have now been shown on the plat. A note has been added to the plan, which staff will verify that parking access is available to each unit. We were concerned that potentially a unit could be excluded, but we'll make sure that that happens during the final plat stage of the review. We were concerned about maintenance and repair of the common parking area. Wanted to make sure that the HOA was designated as a responsible party for the maintenance and the repair of the parking lot, and also the snow removal, repaving, restriping. So this parking lot is now on a lot owned by the HOA, and staff will verify during the plat review process that there is a provision in the covenant documents for the development that requires the HOA to be responsible for that maintenance. Same situation with any repair or replacement of a stormwater management facility. During the review of a site plan, we'll determine if a stormwater management facility is necessary, and if so, we'll make sure that there is a maintenance agreement and that the HOA bears responsibility for that. We wanted to make sure that the street trees would be located on private property. So the plan has now been revised to show street trees on the private property. We were also concerned about the proper setback for the parking lot. They have moved the parking lot back and it now meets the 5-foot required setback. And then commissioners also had a concern about fire department access. So the fire marshal's office has determined that there is sufficient space for access. During the site plan review, the fire marshal will ensure that the grading is sufficient to allow access around the building for ladders, and also that there is a properly marked fire lane in the parking lot. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit tonight with some conditions to help ensure compliance. The first is that no more than 4 single-family attached dwellings are permitted. Number 2, all work must be done in general conformance with the approved master plan and strict conformance with the approved special use permit. Number 3, all common areas, shared parking areas, and associated landscape must be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. Number 4, a site plan of development will be required. And number 5, a final plat will be required to create lots for the common area, parking area, and individual building lots. And staff is recommending approval, or that planning commission recommend approval of this special use permit with those conditions.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Hartless? One sort of curiosity question. So the HOA requirements, because the only other one I can remember was the one on North Augusta with the shaker roofs that we dealt with.
I think everybody remembers that one.
Yes. So is the requirement that the declaration with the HOA and all that be recorded before a building permit is issued or a CO, or how does that work?
Sure. So our concern with the covenants is specifically to ensure that there's a responsible party for maintenance of the common areas and the common elements, in this case, the parking lot and the required landscaping. So we only review the covenants for those specific things that we're looking for. And in this case, we would require that with the final plat. And it has to be recorded with the final plat, just like.
So before the
covenants
building and
normally
then
are.
before. So
Yeah,
that would
so it will
placed
be,
before
it
a
will be
building
before the
permit's
building permits are issued.
And is there something in those that sort of alerts future homeowners to the fact that these things are required as part of the special use permit? I mean, because usually these, the it's going to have lots of things in there that you don't review. Is there something in there that sort of and allows for amendment? Is there something in there that will trigger knowledge to future homeowners that these particular items would need to be reviewed by the city? Because thinking back to that, the issue with the shaker roofs,
Yeah.
I just didn't know how, and that doesn't have to be addressed tonight, but I was just putting a bug in your ear
Sure.
about that when you're looking at that.
I can keep an eye out for that. Generally, in the past, I have not looked for something like that, but that is a good suggestion that we can try to do.
All right. Any other questions for staff?
I remember when we rode by, Daniel had mentioned the access to the open space in the rear and, functionally how that would work for any maintenance or stormwater features or whatever the site plan. I guess, was that how that conversation went? I don't know if you remember, Tim. We were talking about potentially, getting into that open space parcel kind of in the back.
Yeah, we had talked about whether there should be an access easement granted across, from the common area parking lot to the common area in the rear to ensure that there was legal access, for someone if they needed to get back there to mow grass or whatever it was. And I haven't talked to the city attorney about that yet. I will talk to him about that, and that is something that we can look at during the final plat as well. If we believe that easement is necessary, we can make sure that easement is part of the final plat.
We don't think that needs to be part of the special use permit.
No, I don't think it needs to be part of the special use permit.
Okay.
We can do that through general
Yep.
zoning to make sure that there is legal access to the lot.
It doesn't require, of course, what you're asking is that we put a condition in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, it was in not so many words.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. This is not a public hearing, but I don't know. I see that you came all the way to see us again, Mr. Shemp. So I didn't know if you had anything to add before.
Oh, yes, Justin Shamp, I'm the engineer and the owner of the property also. I was at a public hearing last night where I represented a project that had 100 people against it. So this is a nice change of pace. I mean, to say that, otherwise, no, I'm just here to answer any questions. And then go have a nice dinner afterwards.
We have to come up with really good questions for this man here.
We appreciate your patience. I know
Yes.
you wanted to move this along last time, and we appreciate your patience so that all of this could be addressed to the city and our satisfaction.
I think probably the HOA documents will include, access for all the maintenance around, because probably these won't be sold. We'll keep them as for ourselves. But if they were, then there would, the HOA would probably mow everything, maintain everything. And then we view the open space as basically kind of a shared backyard where their kids can run out the back door and into the woods. That's all we're really planning to do with it.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion.
You want to do this?
I can, there's no audience now, so.
Fair enough.
On the basis that the request would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that Planning Commission recommend approval of a special use permit at 126 Guy Street for a planned residential development consisting of 4 single-family attached dwellings with the following conditions. Number 1, no more than 4 single-family attached dwellings are permitted. Number 2, all work must be done in general conformance with the approved master plan and special use permit. Number 3, all common areas, shared parking areas, parking lot, and associated landscape required by Code Section 18.175 must be owned and maintained by a homeowners association. Number 4, a site plan of development will be required. And number 5, a final plat will be required to create lots for the common area, parking area, and individual building lots.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. The Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested special use permit at 126 Guy Street. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Aye.
Ketsiker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, this matter will be heard by the City Council at its meeting on January 8th, 2026 at 7 p.m. to take place right here. Thank you again. All right, we turn to item 3D, authorization for an amendment to section, this is a long one, 18.140.040, parenthetical 4, parenthetical D, parenthetical little Roman numeral 2, downtown business district area defined of chapter 18.140, signs, billboards, and other advertising structures of title 18 zoning of the Staunton City Code to remove portions of North Central Avenue and North Lewis Street from the downtown business area as it relates to sign regulations. Mr. Hartless.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chapter 18.140 of the zoning code regulates signs, and it includes special regulations for an area known as the downtown business area. And this area these regulations include limits on sign types, size, and placement of signs. And again, those are specific to the downtown area. But it does include North Central Avenue and North Lewis Street. So Oliver Dahl is an owner of several properties in that area, and he has requested an amendment to the zoning code to change the boundaries of the DBA to remove portions of North Augusta and North Lewis. The downtown business area was intended to coincide with our historic districts, and it includes all of North Central and all of North Lewis, but everything from Frederick Street north is not in our historic districts. So somehow it still managed to get included in this DBA. This area is also part of our interest corridor overlay district. So it's subject to all of our sign requirements that are part of the ECO. And sometimes those two sets of regulations conflict with each other. So by removing this area from the downtown business area, where we'd be simplifying the sign permitting process, make things easier for property owners, for tenants, and also for city staff when we're trying to review these applications. So staff is recommending that Planning Commission authorize us to work with the applicant and draft an amendment. And I will, if you do authorize this, we will come back to you with that draft language for discussion before we schedule a public hearing for this.
And and that will include perhaps a map that shows exactly which properties are
Yes,
going to be
I will
out.
include a map of the downtown business area and the specific properties that we'll look at removing. We'll also do a look at this on one of our field trips so that you can see the area.
Thank you.
I would assume some of this existing signage down there today is not conforming.
Yes. Some of it is non-conforming to the special regulations because it's been there prior to the code. This all would have happened right around the time the historic districts were adopted. So sometime around 1996 is when this district was created. So there's some signs in that area that are older than that.
We just get some examples too of ones that meet the regulations down there and ones that don't.
Yeah, we can do that. We can go back through some permits that we've issued over the last few years and we'll give you some examples of ones that meet these downtown regulations. And we can give you some examples of some of the existing signs that don't meet them.
I need some soffits and facades and gables and.
Lots of diagrams.
Yeah.
The general idea
You
here
could
is
build us
that
Lego models.
I'm so glad that Mr. Heartless will be presenting.
I'll,
this to you.
You'll just put your 3-minute timer.
I'll get Miss Nesselrod on that for you. The idea is that this North Central, North Lewis, it's a little different than Beverly Street. You know,
Yeah, it is.
there's parking lots and the buildings are set back a little bit further. And we think that the entrance corridor overlay regulations are sufficient for signs in that area. So
And isn't there a conflict between the two
There
historic
is,
and
and the other issue is that the DBA, you're supposed to have a certificate of appropriateness to approve signs. Well, the certificate of appropriateness is a special zoning permit just for historic districts. And these properties aren't in historic districts. And we can't do a certificate of appropriateness. So we approve them now through sign permits. Even though the code says it's supposed to be a certificate, but we just can't do that because it's not in a historic district.
All right. May I have a motion?
Not if it's in front of you.
On the basis that it would serve the interest of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that Planning Commission authorize staff to work on an amendment to section 18.140.040, parentheses 4, parentheses D, parentheses little Roman numeral 2, downtown business area defined of chapter 18.140, signs, billboards, and other advertising structures of Title 18, zoning of the Staunton City Code.
I'll second that.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that we authorize staff to work on the aforementioned amendment. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Swiggin,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kessicker.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Turning to the next items on our agenda, it does not appear we have old business or other business. Is that still the case?
I do have one thing under other business.
Okay.
There are 5 members of the Planning Commission, and only one of you are certified Planning Commission members. So we're in the middle of our budget process for next fiscal year, and it reminded me that we would like to offer you all the opportunity to attend that certified zone, our certified planning commission member training. It's typically it's a 2-day training with a couple of months worth of coursework that you would do from home. And at the end of that training session, the end of that 2-month period, you would become a certified planning commission member. And I really think that I took the training about 12 years ago. I thought it was very beneficial. I think it's a great tool for all planning commissions in the Commonwealth. And for the 4 of you that are not certified, we would ask you to seriously give it some thought. I'll send out a link probably after the first of the year so that you can read a little about the program. They have 3 different sessions that they offer in 2026. 2 of them are in person. So you'd have the 1 day of class, and then you have 2 months where you have this at-home study plan, and then you have a second session, which is a closing session. There's one offered in the winter, there's one offered in late summer, and they also have a virtual session over the summer, which you can do completely from home. You don't have to travel and do anything in person. It's all virtual, which some of you may prefer that option. But the city would cover the cost of the registration, and if you chose to do the in-person session, we would also pay the cost of your hotel room, and you would also be eligible for some meal allowance. But I'll send that out to you in January, but I ask that all of you take a look at it and give it some serious thought, and let me know if you're interested in attending one of these training sessions this year.
Would we be eligible for the next planning commission pay grade?
And do you have me on record as having taken this about 20 years ago?
Yes,
Okay, thank
you are the planning commission member that is certified.
What if you know all the material, but you just didn't write the stupid paper?
Whether or not this would be an additional incentive or not for you to attend. The consultant that's working on a comprehensive plan update and the West End plan and the Uniontown is heading up this program now.
He's on the picture on the website.
Okay.
Right here. So
It used to be offered in partnership with Virginia Tech. Now it is offered through VCU. So one of the sessions this year is in Richmond, and the other session option is in Roanoke.
You get the big city or the not quite as big city.
All right, actions of city council since our last meeting.
Last week at its December 11th meeting, City Council approved a rezoning for 15 Industry Way from I-2 heavy industrial to B2 general business. They also approved a special use permit for South Lewis Street, 110 South Lewis, for manufacturing and production of cider in a B2 business district. And that's it. That was really planning options.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Next item on our agenda is matters from the public. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before we leave today?
No, it's always a pleasure being here.
Thank you. All right, with that, the next planning commission meeting will be January 15th of 2026. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you
That
all.
was the easy one.